So this is outside my normal content that I discuss, but I've just been seeing this drama circulate on the internet a little bit further than I expected. I felt that it was time for me to set the record straight because people just completely have no idea what's going on, and I have a lot of evidence for what I'm about to pose. So first of all, say hello to Marceline. Marceline is my new ball python, and she is serving as my executive supervisor and resident fidget. Look at her, look at her little tongue. Look at her little tongue. It's so cute! Okay, so basically, a few weeks ago, a YouTuber named ContraPoints posted this tweet essentially stating, yeah, it sucks to be a trans woman and have your boyfriend jealous of your transition, but imagine your ex copying your entire internet persona and career. And anybody in the know of who ContraPoints is kind of rushed to the comments and said,
wait, are you talking about PhilosophyTube?
And of course, ContraPoints deleted the tweet, as ContraPoints always does, but not before ContraPoints deleted tweets, saved the tweet, and reposted it. ContraPoints is notorious for deleting tweets. But so is the other person we're going to talk about today. Please don't nip me. Stop it, I'm the man, I'm supposed to take care of myself. Alex is killing me! Alex is killing me! Alex is killing me! Alex is killing me! And if you're wondering if you can join, you cannot. It is. Now, disclaimer, in this video I'm going to be discussing two trans people, and in order to adhere to community guidelines, I'm going to refer to these trans people by their preferred pronouns. I don't believe that true trans is a thing. However, I do believe gender dysphoria is a thing, and I believe that neither PhilosophyTube nor ContraPoints have gender dysphoria. PhilosophyTube has been very open that she does not have gender dysphoria, and that she doesn't even believe gender dysphoria exists.
My contention is that in fact no one has gender dysphoria because it's a category error.
Now, with ContraPoints, she has mentioned several times that she believes she does have gender dysphoria, and she has attempted to describe it, but as somebody who has gender dysphoria and has talked to and seen other people with gender dysphoria, that's really not what it looks like ContraPoints has.
When I try to psychoanalyze myself, I find that my desires to look female, to look feminine, and to look beautiful are not exactly the same, but they're woven together so tightly that it's kind of difficult to untangle them. And the opposite is also true, that for me, feeling mannish or dysphoric usually goes along with feeling ugly.
And that really isn't gender dysphoria, that's just autogynephilia. So first of all, who is ContraPoints and who is PhilosophyTube? ContraPoints and PhilosophyTube are both YouTubers in the BreadTube sphere, which is a YouTube community of content creators who promote left-wing ideologies, socialism, intersectional feminism, etc. And ContraPoints and PhilosophyTube are the two biggest members of BreadTube. It really dominated YouTube from 2018 to 2022, I want to say, but it really petered out over the last couple of years because most of the content creators don't really make content anymore, and the ones that do, their videos are too long and far between. PhilosophyTube's history on YouTube is she started YouTube in 2015 to basically share her philosophy degree for free with people on YouTube. By 2018, she really branched out to just all-around social justice content. ContraPoints' career on YouTube is a lot more elusive and wrought with rebrands, whereas PhilosophyTube has been pretty consistently PhilosophyTube. ContraPoints used to make social justice-y content beginning in 2016 as a cross-dressing man going for kind of a divine Freddie Mercury, Dr. Frankenfurter style of camp.
Now, I don't identify as non-binary myself. In fact, I identify as a main, which is how bluesman Muddy Waters pronounces the word man.
You had YouTubers like Milo Stewart and Riley Dennis who would make statements like,
white people are racist, all men are misogynistic, all cisgender people are transphobic.
Skeptics like Blair White and various other YouTubers that I'll bring up here would say,
maybe I can use the people's natural hatred of you to take the heat off myself! It's brilliant! Brilliant!
And then ContraPoints would say,
A grown man publicly mocking a transgender 17-year-old on the internet.
And that was basically the cycle of ContraPoints content back in 2016 and 2017. But before that, ContraPoints was very active in the atheist community during the atheist creationism debate, and made content under the YouTube alias Nicotine2, which I feel fine saying because it is all publicly available. I didn't go onto ContraPoints' hard drive and steal a bunch of her old videos. This is all public. You can find all of these old videos. Now, that being said, that is ContraPoints, and that is PhilosophyTube. Now, people talking about the tweet and the controversy between PhilosophyTube and ContraPoints, it is pretty public knowledge that ContraPoints and PhilosophyTube have a very similar aesthetic and talk about very similar things on their channel. But most mainstream YouTubers, I'm so distracted right now, I'm kind of scared. She's not gonna hurt me. She's just being a python. Now, most people will deny that there's any evidence that PhilosophyTube and ContraPoints dated. It was pretty public knowledge in the past. They never came out and explicitly stated that they were dating, but if you look at old photos, if you look at old content, it's pretty obvious that the two of them had a relationship. At the very least, they were friends and they spent plenty of time together.
See how she leans her cheek upon her hand? Oh, that I were a glove upon that hand, that I might touch that cheek.
I'm me.
Ah, she speaks. Oh, speak again, bright angel.
Deny thy father and refuse thy name, or if thou wilt not, be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owes without that title.
I'm not gonna make fun of somebody for being in love. Obviously, I'm way worse when I'm in love, but could you be any more obvious? Now, some of you might be asking, wait a minute, ContraPoints is an American YouTuber, and PhilosophyTube is a British YouTuber, so how could they possibly date? Guys, I dated an English girl for 6 months, and had I the funds, and had she had the funds, we would have met up in person a lot. So it is doable to have a relationship with somebody out of country. Thank you. I'm here to present evidence that not only did ContraPoints and PhilosophyTube know each other, but they did in fact date. In 2020, ContraPoints uploaded a video called Shame, where she talked about coming to terms with being a lesbian, and her journey towards discovering that she liked women and exclusively women, even though before she transitioned, she identified as a straight man. Her conclusion was basically, she had a boyfriend at the time, but she also really liked this trans woman, and she called the boyfriend Chad, and she called the trans woman Joanne.
So, my ex-boyfriend, let's call him Chad. Oh, and he was a Chad, like full Giga Chad fantasy. You know, he was very masculine, taller than me, objectively attractive, very charming.
But at the same time, she developed an obsession with one of her friends who was trans, named Joanne. Now, I believe Joanne is Theron Meyer because there's a lot of evidence that has been that people have tried to wipe off the internet, where ContraPoints is spending a lot of time with Theron Meyer, who used to be kind of like Blair White and kind of a skeptic and more of a conservative trans woman.
42 years later, and this person has obviously made zero efforts to transition.
But after spending a lot of time with ContraPoints, did change her mind.
Kind of like an in-person live stream.
Yeah. When are you and Theron getting married? Also, what level of patronage do I need to receive an invite? We're getting married as soon as possible, and you just have to buy our bridal bed. PhilosophyTube modeled her videos after ContraPoints' videos beginning in 2018, when I believe they started dating. There are a lot of people who think it's creepy that PhilosophyTube copies ContraPoints' aesthetic, and there are actually a lot of trans women YouTubers who copy ContraPoints' aesthetic. I don't know if anyone remembers, but in late 2022, PhilosophyTube turned it into a meme that she was into trans
women who are blonde from the United States. Some other examples of this are ContraPoints and Theron Meyer being in a live stream, and they were talking about getting bottom surgery as a trans woman.
Don't think too much about that.
And they were talking a bit about how nice it would be to lose their virginity again for the second time.
And the idea of like losing my virginity again, or like for the first time, I guess.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's super hot.
With like the right person, with like.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that sounds so.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Who am I gonna choose? Who wants to take my vaginal virginity?
Ollie, are you there?
Ollie, are you there?
Hi, Ollie.
She mentioned PhilosophyTube's dead name. Now, I'm going to include it here, but you didn't hear it from me. ContraPoints is so similar to me in a lot of ways. She will just bring up people and situations in her life vaguely, and they're more like Easter eggs sprinkled in, where if you're obsessed with ContraPoints and you know all the lore, you're like,
oh yeah, she confirmed that.
But in Our Traps Gay, she talked about, I don't like talking about this on my channel, she talked about fellatio from a man, a straight man, and somebody who knew her as a guy.
And I got with a guy who, like, years before I transitioned, we'd been guy friends. And you know what he told me after? He told me he liked the mouthfeel.
And yes, the mouthfeel is totally different.
And again, it could be anybody, but if you plant in your mind that this individual is PhilosophyTube, it does add up because there is a live stream between ContraPoints and PhilosophyTube before the two of them transitioned back in earlier 2017.
And my guest is Ollie, one of my favorite YouTubers who runs a channel called PhilosophyTube. Link is in the description. Please go check it out. And Ollie, you want to introduce yourself?
Well, yeah, thank you very much for having me on, Nick, Contra. As you say, I run a channel called PhilosophyTube. I do like a 10-minute or so video every week teaching philosophy.
Now that I have presented my evidence that I believe the two of them dated and that it was serious, I'm going to talk about the sexual assault allegations because most people who do believe that PhilosophyTube and Contra dated, a lot of them also believe that PhilosophyTube assaulted Contra. And there are two reasons for this. Number one, ContraPoints mentioned in a video called Canceling.
There's a fairly prominent figure in leftist politics who I could absolutely hashtag me too.
Because she dated PhilosophyTube and because they are no longer on good terms, people immediately assumed it must have been PhilosophyTube. But I don't believe this is the case because in a live stream, ContraPoints specifically mentioned.
Obviously, I know that not all men do that, and like I said, I had a Chad who was like a sweetheart and would never do that.
Also, with Contra's new tweet, I just don't believe it happened. As for why the two of them fell out, because ContraPoints came out as a lesbian and decided that she couldn't date a man anymore. But they seemed to be on good terms for a little while, but it was around the time that PhilosophyTube transitioned that they seemed to really cut off all content. ContraPoints referred to PhilosophyTube as
I am not really in that person's life, so you know, I had inklings, but I don't particularly want to speak.
Additionally, PhilosophyTube even mentioned that the first person she came out as trans to was a former trans woman friend who responded, oh no, it got you too. And then with PhilosophyTube's identity video and coming out, and it kind of transparently showed how faulty the idea of identifying as something is, how little value it is to simply identify as something with no substance. And PhilosophyTube really did that either intentionally or unintentionally with her two different coming out videos, where she also patted herself on the back for being the most famous trans woman in the UK.
Okay, narcissist.
I don't think PhilosophyTube was a good boyfriend. I don't think ContraPoints was a good boyfriend.
I've said it.
I said what I said.
I don't think ContraPoints broke up with PhilosophyTube because she's a lesbian. I think she broke up with PhilosophyTube because she wanted to get with Theron Meyer, who rejected her for a biological woman.
And they were on good terms until PhilosophyTube came out as trans and potentially implied that she might want to get back together with Contra. You're a woman, I'm a woman, what do we gotta do to make this happen? Another thing that's sort of funny is that around the time that PhilosophyTube was dating Contra, before she identified as trans, she came out as a bisexual man. But that kind of just disappeared after she transitioned and just stated that she was a lesbian. Hopefully this was revelating for you, and hopefully you have learned from this that ContraPoints and PhilosophyTube did most likely date, and that PhilosophyTube probably did not assault Contra ever.